Okay, so we will start our preparation for career fair workshop. And first, I want to introduce a special guest we have here with us today. His name is Adrian. Hi, Adrian.
Good evening, everybody. Nice to be with you.
Awesome. He's here with us from the UTSA Career Center, and he will be here to answer any questions you may have. And he will also provide more information and feedback towards the end of our presentation. So feel free to type in any questions you may have during our presentation for him in the chat, and he will answer that for us.
I just wanted to provide a very, very quick introduction as well, just in case it might help with some of the questions that you may be fielding throughout your presentation, Janelle and Vanessa.
Of course.
Everybody, just a little bit about my role in the University Career Center. I'm the Director of Career Development and College Relations. I'm celebrating my 1-year anniversary with the University Career Center in March, so it'll be my first full year at the university. I oversee our career counseling and experiential learning units within the Career Center. But my background in general, spanning a little bit over a decade in career development at higher education or in career development in general, involves both career coaching and career advising, as well as experiential learning. I've worked in internships and experiential learning as well. So as your leadership is going through its career preparation slides, if you have questions about whether how to navigate a career fair or internships, looking for internships related to tech or anything in between, my background does relate to those areas, so feel free to think about those and put those in the chat as your leadership mentioned, and I'll be happy to answer them toward the very end of the workshop today.
Some other upcoming events include the UTSA Spring All Majors and Internship Virtual Career Expo. That'll be February 16th. And then there will also be a STEM Virtual Career Expo, February 23rd, and a UTSA Tech Career Expo, March 26th. Okay, so first, we have separated this into 3 sections. First, I will talk about the resume section, next the elevator pitch, and then towards the end, we'll have the another section for tips. Okay, so the objective of your resume is to help you get the interview. And typically a resume will be no more than 2 pages documenting and detailing your experiences and activities that you have accomplished throughout your college career. It's a great place to showcase your interests, growth, and impact. And the typical structure is something like this. At the very top of your resume, you will have an objective. You will have your personal information, education, followed by work experience, any projects you've worked on, followed by leadership and activities, and any honors or awards that you have received. So the language you use when adding experiences and activities to your resume is very important. There's 4 things that you need to focus on. One of them is quantifying results. And what we mean by that is, for example, if you want to explain that you helped increase membership in a specific club or organization that you were part of, quantify it by specifying by how much. For example, saying increased it by 30% with the use of social media platforms. Something like that, because that demonstrates the impact of your work. In your resume, numbers are your friends. And the second point that I want to focus on is to use active verbs. For example, include words like coordinate, planned, organize, design, build. These words will add value and help sell yourself better in your resume. Another important concept is to use specific language. Detail what tools and technology you use for specific projects. Talk about the objective of the project you worked on. Talk about the results. And the last one is using proper tense. When you're talking about past experiences, you want to have the proper tense. In the work experience and project section of your resume, make sure to include any internships and fellowships you have been part of. Be sure to be clear and concise. on what technology you used, try listing the most relevant opportunities first. Under each experience you add, describe your personal achievements, not just responsibilities that you had. If you have not had any real work experience, you can include summer jobs or volunteer work that you have done in the past. In this objective education section, in this example, I use this example because this is the one I found, and I think it does a pretty good job. For the objective, it states it's seeking for an internship in the computer science field, more specific to software development. It includes the education, the major, relevant coursework, which is important to include because this can let companies know what topics you have been exposed to. So far, it's important to include the technical skills, your technical skills and other languages that you have had exposure to. And I use this example because I think it does a good job of what we mentioned. Quantifying, it uses active verbs and shows specific language. For example, when you're listing a work experience, specific to this one, teaching assistant, it reads, led weekly office hours to 25 students, debugging Java, supervised 55 TAs for 500 undergraduates. As you can see, they use specific language, they use action verbs, they use led, supervised, and there's the information is quantified. We know how many hours, we know about how many undergraduates. And same thing goes for when adding a work experience like an internship. For example, right here, they highlight their achievements. Wrote an average of 10 lines of code per day, web app using Python, collaborated with a team of 8 programmers, impaired programming, raised efficiency by 28%. Again, quantifying, using active verbs, highlighting accomplishments. Same goes for personal projects. We have to state what kind of tools we used. In this case, with web scraping app, created web scraping app. Finished product delivers best movies to watch in each genre. Furthermore, personal website, created personal website using Element in HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So you see in this section, they include which technology tools they used. It's detailed about what the project was about and what the final result was. In this example, this is an example of leadership experience. This is a before. I'm using this example of our Vice President, Janelle. This is an example of before. As you can tell, there's no specific action verbs. The information is not quantified. But after we changed that language to use active verbs, to use quantifiers, we can see this change from led workshops to teach people about technology, to led intro to tech series with projects chair, to teach introductory computer science skills to over 30 members who are new to the technology field. Furthermore, she states, connect memberships to local entities such as Youth Code Jam, coordinate volunteer events. Furthermore, organize weekly workshops, socials for over 180 members to increase student professionalism and technical knowledge. So as you can tell, this uses a lot of different and better active verbs and uses more specific language, which is what we want, which helps her sell herself more and show off her skills. So these were just some examples, but you can always use this for your own activities and experiences. You can always change them to have quantified results, to include action verbs, to use specific languages. So there is a lot of templates out there. A good option is Microsoft Word. It's free for all UTSA students. They have some neat templates that are a great starting point. Also, the Career Center has a website with resources that has resume samples specific to every major. So it's a great starting point and a great point of reference. So please take a look at that. And it's always a good idea to get a second pair of eyes to evaluate the quality and make suggestions to your resume. The Career Center is open to appointments and drop-in hours to review resumes. And they also have a tool called VMmock, which is which it is a tool that uses artificial intelligence to review resumes. They use keywords to search for that. And another option is to look for professionals around you. You'd be surprised at how willing they are to take a look at your resume and make appropriate suggestions. One other thing that I wanted to add to the resume section was that it is important to tailor your resume for a specific role that you're applying to, because every role in the job description looks for a more specific set of skills. So if you tailor every resume for different applications to have those specific skills they're looking for, you can have a greater chance in landing in that interview. Okay, the next section I wanted to talk about was the elevator pitch. So the elevator pitch is a 60 to 90 second sales pitch about yourself. It defines what you can bring to a potential employer, and it highlights your experience and education in your field. So what the structure usually is composed of is a quick introduction, followed by your purpose, what experiences and activities you've been part of in that field, what you offer, and a call to action. So this is a good starting point. This is a good example of what it could sound like. So it could be, for example, hi, my name is Vanessa. I'm a student at the University of Texas at San Antonio, majoring in computer science. My expected graduation date is 2022. I'm interested in a career in software development. I've gained experience in my field through various hackathons I've attended at my university and programming contests I've been part of. I can bring value to your company because of my skills in JavaScript. Could you tell me, can you talk to me about opportunities in your company in relating to software development? Or if there is certain time constraints, you could say, I'm really interested in your company. I would like to learn more. Is there a more convenient time for you this week to meet up, or for me to give you a call? So there's options. This structure is a great starting point. You can always change it up a bit. It doesn't have to follow this format, but it's good to include these specific set of concepts. Okay, now I will pass it back to Janelle. She'll talk a little bit more about some tips and the logistics behind the virtual setting this semester.
Thank you, Vanessa. Yeah, so we're going to talk about kind of how everything that we just spoke on can fit into the Career Center events and the career fairs and expos that are coming up here in a couple weeks. And please keep asking questions and chatting in the chat. I love to see it. And we will definitely get to some more of those questions here at the end as well. So first, since everything's virtual, how is this career expo going to work? So we broke it down into 4 sections that we're going to go over, kind of what you should be doing to prepare. So the first thing that we're going to talk about is reserving a session, making sure that you have a time slot to talk to somebody and that you're ready to go for the fair. And then the next thing is that you want to complete your profile in Handshake. So Handshake is what the Career Center uses to carry out these career expos and these career fairs. And you get to kind of mold your own profile that will show companies who you are before they even get to talk to you. So we'll show you how some things like your elevator pitch and resume can go into that. And then the third thing that we're going to talk about is doing your homework. So you don't want to just like walk up to anybody and be like, oh, hey, I've maybe heard of your company, like, and then ask what they do. You want to do your homework on the company, do your research, and then you can ask them more specific questions, and that will impress them a little bit more. And then 4 is you're just going to talk to companies after you've done these 3 steps, and then you're going to be ready to go. So we'll go through that. So like I mentioned, it's going to be a virtual fair or virtual expo this year. And the 3 dates are listed on there again. So what you're going to do is you're going to go to the University Career Center website. And then there is going to be an events tab, which is like right here. And then any of these events that you want to register, go ahead and hit learn more. And that will take you to your Handshake login page. And then once you're there, you can either create an account or log in with your ABC123 and passcode. And then once you're into Handshake is when you can actually start doing the registering for events and creating your profile. So this is what the Handshake page looks like. And I have like the link right here. I know it's not clickable, but just type in UTSA Handshake on into Google and you should be able to get all signed up as long as you click UTSA for your school. And thank you, Zach. Zach just dropped that link in the chat. So if you hit this register button that you'll see on your screen in Handshake, don't be fooled. You're not actually going to make it to any events if you only register, right? Registering is your first step. There's a lot more to do after that as well. So make sure you're registered. But then also there will be a list of companies that are attending the expo, and you want to be able to register for either a one-on-one session or a group information session. And so you can read a little bit about all of the companies. You can filter by what they do or maybe who they're looking for. But I encourage you to go through this list and look at everybody, right? Because you don't know who's going to be there. And it doesn't take very long to, go through like a few pages if it's something you're really invested in. All right, so now that we've gone over kind of how to register for the fair, how to get signed up, what you're going to want to do is make your Handshake profile as good as you can get it, because once you sign up for these sessions, they're going to be able to see your Handshake profile. And so you don't want that to be something that you've put off, and maybe you have a great resume and a great elevator pitch, but they come in with this preconception because they've looked at your profile, right? And so what we're going to do is we're going to show you how your resume and your elevator pitch can help you in making your profile. So your resume can help because right once you go into your profile, there will be a box at the top that says build your profile faster. And you'll notice that there's an upload a resume option. And so this will help you go through your resume into each of the sections and match them to sections on your Handshake profile. So you can see down here that we have an education section. There are also sections for work and volunteer experience. So that's something that Vanessa talked about on the resume that you can put on here. And this will just help you make sure that you've got everything on your resume, but you can also expand on it. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. And you can also display your resume on your page in the document section. So it's just out of view on this screenshot here, but if you go down in the left-hand corner and you scroll down, there will be a document drop box. So, and it'll ask if you want to display something like your resume. So you can upload a PDF of that there. And then what you can do is set that visible. And your profile, I think somebody mentioned it in the chat, but make sure that, Adrian mentioned it in the chat, and that your profile has to be set to visible in order to participate. And it would also be great to have your resume set as visible so that employers can see that as well. So Vanessa also talked about a elevator pitch. So where this can go, or where a version of this can go, is in your My Journey section. At least that's what I've found success using it for. So for example, it might not be as specific as, oh, I've learned this specific technical skill and it applies to your company this way, but you can make it a little bit more general. So maybe instead of saying that what I will bring to a specific company. I end mine with, I will bring this curiosity and interdisciplinary synthesis to my future work as I pursue a career in artificial intelligence research. So that's more broad, but it still gives them an idea of who I am and my goal, and that I have direction. So if you can make your elevator pitch a little bit more general and put it in this My Journey section, I think that employers will be pretty impressed, at least from a student perspective. So we're going to go into some of the other sections more in depth. You'll notice this will be just like the resume. So feel free to use that tool and snag from your resume and put it on your profile. So the first one's education. And something that I wanted to note about here is your GPA and all of your information is locked in. So you can't change it. You know, that would be bad to try to lie to employers because they're going to figure it out. But then what you can do is you can click the hide from employers button. And so maybe this will get you a chance to go ahead and introduce yourself, you know, before that they see your GPA, because maybe there's more to you. Maybe instead of you're working on getting your GPA up, but first semester was really hard for you, or you were working on a project, or you had a job during that. So it gives you a little bit more leeway in order to try to explain yourself before, you know, they get this picture of you and your GPA. The next two sections are pretty similar, and we kind of talked about this earlier with the resume, but work and volunteer experience and organizations and extracurriculars. So both of them you can fill in from your resume. So for work and volunteer experience, some of the advice that I've gotten from employers is every experience counts. So maybe you're thinking, oh, I'm a freshman, or I'm a junior. I don't have any like internship experience yet. I haven't been able to do that, but I've been working full time over the breaks or part time during the semester at this job. And I was actually going to a resume review session with somebody from Dell, and I didn't put any of that on there. And he was like, "What have you been doing?" And so I told him that I had a summer job before this and everything, and he himself had the same summer job. And so we were able to connect on that. So you never really know what you're gonna find connections on. And if you don't have anything to put in there, put what you've been doing. Put that part-time job. It shows that you have that work ethic, and there are still soft skills that transfer from there. But it is great when you do have that more experience to put what applies to that job. So that would be great. And then here in this section, you're not just limited to a page. So a resume, you usually have a page, but here online, you can expand on things more. So we talked in the resume section about being specific and having those numbers, having your impact, having what role you had. And you can do that for every single position on here just because you have the space to, right? You can add all of these positions and you can add different bullet points like would be on your resume, but you're not constrained to that one page. So make sure to really show your impact on all of the positions that you've had. The next section is organizations and extracurriculars. So I would hope that all of you have ACM on here and you can be even more specific with that, right? Because ACM is this giant network that is with a lot of people, but maybe you went to our React workshop last week and it inspired you to kind of start tinkering around with your own website. So you can be a little bit more specific in your experiences and your takeaways. Or if you go to ICPC every weekend, instead of just saying ACM member, you can say that you work on data structures and algorithm skills in a team environment to problem solve or something like that. So it's a little bit more specific because ACM is a great resource because there's so many members, but you can also make yourself stand out a little bit more by saying what you took away from ACM. Another great section that Handshake offers is courses. So we recognize that, you know, some people, I'm one of those students where during the semester, I just focus on my grades. And so this gives those people a chance to shine. So I would write down the courses that are relevant to the opportunity that you're looking for. So for instance, this course list was from when I did career fair in the fall, and I was going for a data science position. So I was like, I need to put math on here, and I need to put coding, and I need to put statistics. So this is what mine looked like. And I would encourage you to kind of mold it to what opportunity you're looking for as well, because, you know, if I list like history courses or like my art class, it's maybe not as relevant and it's more for them to sift through. But those courses where you learn something that could benefit the job that you're applying for, that would be great to write down. And then they also have a project section. Again, this is something that you can put on your resume. You can list things in here like long reports or essays. So my freshman year, I had to do like a 20-page paper on cybersecurity and like incident response. And so you better believe that I put that on there. And also you can have other personal projects that you put on there. And then if you're going to Rowdy Hacks, you can put your hackathon projects. And something that I would encourage you to do is, again, in this little description area, kind of describe the impact or maybe the role you had or in the environment or any numbers or tech like speak that you can get at. So what like frameworks, like languages, APIs you used, any of that. And then there are also bonus points, you know, if you add in a GitHub repo of your project or another URL of maybe your working project, something a little bit flashy for them to look at, that would be great. And then one of the last sections we're going to talk about is skills. This is also a section you can have on your resume, but make sure that it's relevant to opportunities that you're seeking. And that doesn't mean that you can't list things that are soft skills. So for example, I put on mine like leadership and project management because those are two skills that I think I possess. And if they ask me about those skills, I could give them examples of it, right? But you can also put technical skills like different languages or frameworks or again like APIs or stuff like that that you know how to use. And you can just search in this little skills box. It's on the left-hand side of your Handshake profile and then add those. All right, so now that we have our Handshake profile set up, we're going to talk about talking to companies. So I mentioned before that you can register for two types of sessions. One is the group session and one is the individual session. The group session, the vibe that I kind of got from it in the fall, and then also how it was structured was there may be a couple representatives, maybe one, but there are a lot of students. So it's open to a group of students. And so these sessions are generally a little bit more like information about the company and how to apply. Whereas if you sign up for an individual 10 minutes, it's absolutely great because that is your time. You don't have to wait in any long lines, and that's just your time to impress and connect to whoever you're talking to. So, what you should do before you get into one of these sections is you should do your homework on the company. So, go to the position or the job opening, and I believe Leon said it earlier, but if you can, apply to that job opening. That way, if they ask you or they try to start giving you information about the application, then you can say, "Yep, I've already filled it out. Like I'm very excited about this." And that gets it past those questions like, "Oh, like what opportunities do you have to offer?" And that really makes the most of your 10 minutes because you can spend that time seeing how you fit in with the company and getting to talk to somebody and try to relate to them and try to make that connection so that you get an interview instead of just information on how to apply. But that is like no way mandatory, but it is something that really impresses people. So the other things that you should be looking up is maybe like the company goals or mission statements or their mission areas. So what are they working on? Oftentimes you'll get into these rooms and they'll be like, "What do you know about our company?" And if you can have something to say about some project that they're working on or maybe some mission area and you can connect that to yourself, that's really awesome for companies to hear. And that's really utilizing your 10 minutes by yourself with this rep to the fullest extent. And then you can also get even more specific because oftentimes when you're signing up for these group sessions or one-on-one sessions, it'll have a name of who you're going to be talking to from the company. Sometimes it won't, but sometimes it will. And you can do a little bit of Googling, a little bit of searching on LinkedIn or something like that to try to find them and exactly what they do, right? Because some of them are going to be HR representatives. And so for there, they might not know that many like technical questions about different tech. I'm not saying that they won't, but it's just good to go in with an idea of who you're talking to because you could also be talking to somebody who works in an engineering position there for 40 hours a week. And so they can really talk about all the different projects going on or like what they worked on or things like that. So once you know who you're kind of talking to from the company, then you can specify your questions in your conversation a little bit more. So the last thing that you want to have going into these is you want to have questions for the representative. Show them that you're engaged, show them that you're interested in the company, and show them that you're a good fit. But keep in mind that you're also testing them to see if they're a good fit for you, right? It's kind of similar to an interview in that kind of respect. So I think Leon added also values, which is really important because you want to end up working at some place that aligns with your values and what you find important, right? You can be doing similar work for a different company, but maybe they align with your values a little bit better. So use these questions to get yourself more information and then also show your interest. All right, so when you're talking to companies, your elevator pitch is going to be your best friend. So you can go in there and they'll be like, hi, and you'll be like, hi. And they might say, tell me a little bit about yourself. Or if you want to just jump in and start introducing yourself, hi, my name is Janelle. I'm a sophomore computer science major. Make it quick and then ask, it's great to meet you. Like, what do you do in this company or something like that? Kind of start like a conversation so that they can introduce themselves and you can introduce yourself. And after that, it'll be a lot easier. And something they taught me last year at the career fair is they're like, people know that we're students, right? And so they'll try to kind of like guide us along a little bit, but it's great if you can take that initiative and go and introduce yourself. It's really not as stressful as you think. You're just talking to another person. It is important and it is more formal, but you're able to kind of speak about yourself and your interests. So if you can get excited over that and start talking to them about different interests or connect to their company like that, that's great. Use all the research that you have. So if they ask you different questions or if you um, know that you want to ask a specific question, go ahead and do that. And also play to your strengths. So if you are really strong in some sort of skill and they mention that, oh, like my company does like website development, and then you can go ahead and specify to your strength of, oh, I did this in React, like this was a project that I worked on and things like that. And so you really want to get to the experiences that you have that can benefit the company. So in this 10-minute exchange, you can kind of see how you fit into the company and make them believe it a little bit too. All right, with that, that's kind of all we have for the elevator pitch, resume, and career fair tips. So with that, you're going to be pretty much ready. But we do have some other great resources on campus that can help. One is Adrian. So I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to Adrian from the Career Center to maybe answer some of those questions that you all put down, and then also expand on a couple things that maybe Vanessa and I touched on, but he would like to add something else.
Thank you so much, Adele, and good evening, everybody. And I'm willing to assume that I may be standing between you and the end of your meeting as well. So my time is your time. I'm going to answer any and all questions you may have with the time remaining. Why don't I do this? So first and foremost, thank you to your organization leadership for the invitation. Like I mentioned, I'm representing the University Career Center, and they have invited me to provide some supplementary recommendations in advance of some of our upcoming career expos, and then talk in brief about some of the resources that our office offers to students at the university. You know, throughout the presentation, I was trying to think of ways that I could supplement some of the recommendations that were being illustrated and expounded upon. But you know, I would say that everything that Vanessa and Janelle have spoken about, you have everything you need for the most part to prepare for some of these upcoming career expos. So I might elaborate a bit here and there, but I would say you reference back to this presentation as best you can throughout the course of the next few days and as you get ready over the course of the next few weeks to attend some of these virtual events. And I think you will be far and away prepared to make the most out of those experiences. Even if you're not looking for an opportunity right now per se, if you say are looking for an internship to coincide with the fall semester of the next academic year, still attending these events is a great way to network and learn about opportunities, be them employment or internship related, expand your professional network. Obviously, there will be certain sessions that will be more conducive to more career exploratory related endeavors like the group sessions. If you are meeting one-on-one with a recruiter, it is best to be able to have a far more direct and engaged conversation about a specific job or internship that may interest you at their company or organization. But again, use these experiences as ways to navigate events like this, expand your professional network, add a few connections online so that as you move along your career at the university, you begin collecting a robust network of professionals that you can reach out to as opportunities become available and as you want to reinitiate some of those conversations. So what I want to do very quickly, I know a few of you submitted questions ahead of time. Let me pull those up and answer those. While I'm doing that, I do recall somebody in the chat asking about augmenting a GPA at Handshake. I will say this, and some of this information is anecdotal. Some of it is based on my experience so far in the Career Center and navigating the Handshake platform. My understanding of the way the GPA works in Handshake is that that information is locked and pulled directly from student account information and Banner, since those two systems, I believe, are linked in one way or another. So I do not think that we in the University Career Center have the ability to augment a student's GPA the way that it is reflected on their Handshake or in their Handshake profile. Even if we did, I believe with the weekly or nightly uplink or upload that occurs, it would still revert back to whatever information is present in a student's account, in their banner account. So my recommendation to whoever's interested in trying to make an update to their GPA, that they either contact One Stop and or the registrar's office to talk about determining what that GPA may look like on their end as the official or student record that might be on file and banner, and that is migrated over to Handshake during that sync that occurs. Yes, so that may be a more circular answer. I know that we're always looking for the most effective solutions to kind of address some of the questions that we have, but that's the best answer that I can provide right now. However, again, we're all in this together and we're all in the virtual space. So if you're needing help identifying specific contacts in different offices, you can always start with us, and we'd be happy to try to point you in the direction of a staff member, colleague, whoever else may be in the best position to answer that question for you. So please do feel free to get a hold of us. Like Janelle and Vanessa mentioned, our office is open largely in the virtual space. All of our appointments and drop-in hours are virtual and are conducted by Zoom Monday through Friday. We have a virtual chat tool available that our virtual peer mentors host throughout the week as well, in case you are ever visiting our website and have questions about some of our digital resources. But again, in brief, everything that your leadership touched upon, resumes, recruiting events, getting ready for interviews, looking for jobs and internships, career exploration, those are things that the University Career Center does. And our team of career counselors is available to work with you to navigate those different resources, okay? All right, so a few questions that were submitted ahead of time. What are some common mistakes you as an I see that students make at career fairs or when applying to positions? It's a good question. And I'm not going to describe these as mistakes so much as learning experiences, because I think that we all are constantly in this mode of learning, right? We're students first, and these are learning moments, right? These aren't mistakes that inhibit our ability to move forward in pursuit of our professional development goals. So please remember that, okay? Look at these experiences and moving forward as opportunities to develop some perspective and carve out identifying where your professional interests lie. But as is described, so we'll talk about these learning experiences that students are engaged in during career fairs or when applying to positions. I would say, I think one of your officers talked about being as prepared as possible. Sometimes, for many reasons, career fair attendees may be underprepared to either talk with an industry representative or to navigate the career fair in general. We saw that sometimes when we hosted on-campus traditional career fairs, right, which can sometimes be an intimidating experience, but even more so right now in the virtual space, since the way that these career fairs work is very different compared to the way that on-ground, on-campus traditional career fairs happen. Being underprepared accidentally or just for whatever other reason can sometimes inhibit a student's ability to maximize the value of engaging in that kind of experience. So I know that everyone has a very busy schedule this week, academic, other kinds of commitments, but the more time you can invest in preparing your schedule ahead of time, reserving sessions, learning about the organizations with whom you would like to start a conversation, the better prepared and the more confident and composed you will be when you actually get into those sessions. You can focus more so on trying to have a conversation with the representatives as opposed to trying to remember very specific or more transactional questions you were wanting to ask ahead of time. So again, getting settled, getting prepared, thinking about intentionally things you want to ask from a sense of real curiosity or enthusiasm about those roles. Those kinds of questions and those kinds of conversations do leave a lasting impression on the recruiters, right? They will know if you are just reading from a list of more standard or templated questions because you're unsure as to how to have a conversation with them in the space of a session or a group presentation. So think about realistically what questions you may have about an internship program, about an organization that interests you, about their background and their experience with the company, and make the most of those conversations and do your homework. And the more preparation you invest in on the front end, the more impactful those conversations will be. The same with applying to a position. The more time you spend on the front end customizing your application materials, resumes, cover letters, the more tailored those materials are to identifying where your skills and experience and goals align with the roles, responsibilities, mission, vision of an organization as described in their position description, the more likely it is that you'll make an impact and a positive impression and gain interest from the individuals reviewing your application materials, okay? Another question, what if I don't meet all the required skills on the job listing? Should I apply? Good question. There's a difference between, as you're reviewing a position description, preferred qualifications and required qualifications. So as you're reading from top to bottom, you want to apply that kind of analytic inquiry and look very closely at the difference between required and preferred. Absolutely, you need to meet the required qualifications at a fundamental level in order to be considered for a role. Those preferred qualifications, though, those may be some of the more heightened or experience-driven skills or abilities that sometimes candidates may or may not possess entirely. Anecdotally, I would say if you meet the required qualifications of a role and some and or most of the preferred qualifications, a really critical technical skill notwithstanding, I would say you're probably okay to apply for the role, right? If there are certain fundamental and required skills that you do not possess that would severely mitigate or inhibit your ability to do that job, you may not be the most prepared to apply at this time in your career. And so it's not to say that you could never apply for a position like that. It just means that right now you may not meet some of those foundational requirements. Sometimes when students ask me that question, it has more to do with the years of experience described in the role. If you're looking at a job and they say, look, they're telling me that they are asking for 1 to 2 years of experience in this area or this area, or 3 to 5 years of experience in this area or this area. Sometimes that has more to do with where you are in your career. If you're looking at a job description and they are asking for 1 to 2 years of experience, not necessarily postgraduate employment, but maybe a combination of, as your officers were saying, academic projects, internships, volunteer experience, part-time work experience, you may have a combination of that 1 to 2 years experience as a soon-to-be graduate or an upperclassman to qualify for that kind of a role. And so before you decide not to apply for a position like that, come and talk to us and we can take a look at the role together and help you make the determination as to realistically whether or not it would behoove you to apply at this time. But I would say this, more often than not in my observation, applicants think that they are not qualified when they really are. And so I would say look at the position carefully, and if you meet the vast majority of the qualifications, especially the required qualifications, and a critical skill notwithstanding, in all likelihood, you're fine to apply. When is the best time to apply to an internship? Okay, this is also in general. And like I said, I used to work as an internship coordinator in a former role. So used to work a lot with internship programs and their recruiting timelines. In general, I think it's safe to say that most organizations try to recruit, interview, make offers, and hire their interns at least 1 semester in advance of the semester when the internship occurs. So that is to say, right now we're looking at the summer 2021. If your goal is to try to secure an internship in general for summer 2021, right now would be the time to apply, be in the process of applying and interviewing for internships. That's a generalization of the timeline. There are many organizations that recruit earlier, right? And sometimes those organizations, they may have a more competitive internship program. They may be in an industry that tends to recruit earlier. I know that especially with some larger, maybe well-known tech firms that have well-developed and hyper-competitive internship programs, for their summer internship programs, they will recruit 2 semesters, maybe 3 semesters in advance for their summer or subsequently fall or spring internship cohorts. So it depends on the organization, and it behooves you to research the organizations and assemble a list of your target organizations early in advance. But in general, though, I think many organizations tend to recruit at least 1 semester in advance of when they try to hire their internship cohort. Sometimes organizations will employ, though, just-in-time hiring. So if you're looking for a spring internship, believe it or not, you may still be able to find one, and we might still be able to help you with that too. All right, are there coding questions in interviews? Any coding questions in interviews? I'm gonna do my best to answer this based on my experience, and then if your leadership, based on their experience, also has some recommendations to put in the chat, I would welcome their feedback too. I would say that it depends on where you're at in the interview cycle. If you're at the introductory interview for a position, maybe a screening interview, I think in most cases, recruiters, HR representatives, they just kind of want to get a sense of your interest and fundamental skill set and experience, and maybe where you are in your university life cycle when you're applying to a job or to an internship. I think some of the more coding or granular or skill-based or maybe even behavioral-based, scenario-based questions that may involve coding, those may occur later on, maybe during a second round interview with either a hiring manager or maybe a potential supervisor, where you have the ability to unpack some of those more technical questions or scenario-based questions. That's my opinion. That's what I've seen in the past in terms of how students have described their internship experiences or interview experiences to me. But it does depend. I would say though, if you're concerned about answering some sort of a coding-based question or a hyper-technical question during a 10-minute session during one of our upcoming career expos, I doubt that would happen. I can't promise that because it depends on the employer and it depends on their recruiting initiative. But I think in most cases, you're going to spend those 10 minutes really having a higher level conversation with the recruiter about a program at large or an internship in general that may interest you. Janelle, you unmuted yourself.
Right. Yeah. I was just going to say as well. Yeah, during the career expos, it probably won't be the fact or the case that you get an interview question, but like Adrian said, who knows? But it's usually those like bigger companies like Facebook, Google, Microsoft that'll always want to do the technical interviews. So it really depends on who you apply with. Like I'm about to have an internship this summer, and all it was like a phone interview. So it kind of depends on where you're at and what that specific company is looking for. But I also recognize that we are getting up around like 6:30. So if there's any questions that you still have, like feel free to stick around. But for everyone who has to go and has stayed this hour, I don't want you to miss out on the sign-in form. So I'm just going to kind of breeze through some of these opportunities that we have coming up and then the sign-in form, and then we can get to some questions as well, if that sounds okay with you, Adrian. All right, perfect. All right, so Vanessa went out and found a bunch of opportunities that might relate to you on Handshake. So you can thank her for this. But Handshake is not only your profile for different for the like different career expos and stuff, but it's also where you can find and apply for jobs. So for example, Vanessa found some that are for Adobe Systems or Dell Technologies or HCL Technologies. And so you can find all of these through Handshake. There will be different applications and everything like that you can find for jobs that you might be interested in. And then we have an alumni and also former ACM officer, who works at PwC. And so they have some opportunities that are coming up. So, and that are actually accepting applications. So we wanted to feature those. PwC is like an audit and assurance and like tax consulting company, but they also do some like cybersecurity and privacy stuff, as well as human resources and forensics. So you can work with technology and data science like AI to solve business problems. So if you're interested in any of that, or you might just want to go check them out, feel free to look at these two QR codes. Just go ahead and scan them really quick. Right. And thank you so much for coming, Adrian. We really appreciate it. And the sign up link is in the chat. So you can still ask questions, but I'm just going to leave this up here because we have great opportunities coming up for especially people interested in tech. So we even have like our own career expo and the STEM expo and the general one. So make sure that you're signing up for all of these. And if you're not ready come February 16th or February 23rd, the Tech Career Expo is in March. So you have time to start thinking about what you want to apply for. Granted, there will probably be different positions open during these different times, but be sure to sign up for some of these and take what you learned today and put it to some good use. So yeah, if there's any questions, put them in the chat, please. But I actually have a question for Adrian in the meantime.
Sure.
So some questions that I've heard are, your resume is only a page. How do you decide what to, typically, again, it depends, federal resumes are longer and everything, but how do you decide what to kind of start cutting down if you realize that, oh, I'm at like 3 pages? How do you kind of prioritize that?
Sure, and we're all friends, so we're gonna have a candid conversation about resume and resume etiquette and resume length. And I will tell you before I provide my recommendation a couple of things. One, during your career, you're going to hear many opinions on how long a resume should be, and there are differing opinions. Okay, and you're likely to hear many different things during your time as a student in college as well. And so I'm going to tell you that as someone who's been writing resumes professionally for over a decade now, I've seen almost every kind of resume you can imagine, and I'm here to tell you this with confidence that unless you're seeing very explicitly in the application instructions by an organization, or if you are trying to conform your resume to meet certain academic requirements as part of an assignment, which is absolutely okay. If that's the one-page resume requirement you're trying to conform your document to, if you have solid relevant experience and enough of that to fill a page and a half or 2 pages, then it's okay to submit a resume that's longer than a page for a job application. And I mean that because many of you are going to be highly engaged in pursuit of volunteer experiences, academic projects, internships, part-time work, full-time work, co-op experiences, whatever the case may be, and depending on your specific program at the university. Sometimes it's difficult to fit all of that experience on a one-page resume. Now, if you're attending a career fair, it may be helpful to have a one-page resume that almost acts as sort of a a primer to some of the longer and more comprehensive experience you want to share with an employer later on, almost like a business card, right? So you can use the resume for different purposes, but if you're applying to an internship, they want to know as much about how your experience aligns with that internship program. And if you have a page and a half of recent, relevant college-specific experiences that show how you've invested in your education and professional development and affiliations and anything in between, and they're not requiring that you submit a one-page resume, it may be more beneficial to submit a 2-page resume than a one-page resume and risk sacrificing content in order to kind of fit all that experience on one page. Now, if you're worried about your resume that is maybe a page and a tenth of a page in length, that's probably a formatting issue that we can work on in the Career Center to condense the resume down to a page. But I'm here to tell you, as somebody who does this for a living, that I would rather you put everything on the page that makes the most sense to submit as part of your application and submit a strong application than worry about having to sacrifice something that actually could have been useful as part of your application in order to satisfy a one-page resume rule that's kind of more of a general guideline, I would say. But let's say that you are looking for things to compress or kind of make more concise as you're paring the resume down a bit. I would say that if you are linking or including a custom URL to your LinkedIn profile or to your online portfolio in one way or another, that's one way to make the digital version of your resume, so to speak, a far more comprehensive overview of all of your recent experiences, and then focusing on some of the more recent or relevant stuff on the one-page document. I do that sometimes. I will include a link to my LinkedIn profile in the contact info section of my resume in the heading, where people can see everything that I've done over the course of my career. And I'll tailor the resume just to kind of stick to the most recent and relevant stuff that might be of most interest to my target audience. So that's one way to kind of condense some of the experience down. I would focus on some of those core, right, exactly, include a link to your GitHub as well. I'd focus on, again, the last couple of years of your experience, be it academic projects in which you've engaged, or especially internships, work experiences, things of that nature. If you just say graduated from high school and maybe are in your first or second year of your college degree, that can be a little bit more challenging. But once you pass that 1 or 2 year threshold into college, you're going to want to start moving some of that high school related experience off the resume altogether. And sometimes that can help condense your resume to a page as well.
Right. And what I will add to that is being an ACM is honestly like the quickest way to do that, because you can go to hackathons, you can go to ICPC on the weekends, you can get involved in leadership. So As Adrian said, it can be difficult, kind of starting out. But then if you just get involved and you keep being very intentional, then you may have that problem like Adrian, where you have to link your LinkedIn just for all of that information because you can't possibly fit it onto a page.
For me, that's more of a problem of time, just because I've been working a little bit longer than most of the people I think in our meeting today. But I would say I'm so impressed with so many of the students I've been talking to recently who are just so active, and kudos to you for doing that, given the challenge of doing all this in the virtual space, right? We all recognize that, and the recruiters will recognize it too. And that's something else that you can add in addition to the work that you're doing. Not only are you helping to organize these meetings, not only are you attending these meetings and engaging in this professional development, but you're doing so in the virtual space, which has its own challenges associated with it, right? And so that's another talking point that you can include in one way or another and language it appropriately on your resume as you're talking to some of these recruiters. They're going to want to know that. They're going to want to know how you're able to manage projects and work collaboratively and get things done as a college student, doing a lot of that stuff virtually.
Right. Thank you so much. I recognize we are over time, but I think it's been a great discussion. So if you have any further questions, feel free to reach out. If you're in our Discord, you could go into literally like any chat. We won't get mad at you if it's like the wrong chat. I think we have something for professional development, maybe. Or maybe we took that out. Maybe like the general stuff, or if you want to ask an officer specifically, feel free to drop any questions in there. And then Adrian just put his email in the chat. So feel free to, if I'm not overstepping here, reach out to him. I'll let him speak on that.
My time is your time, and I'm here to serve students at the university, as is the Career Center in which I work. So, feel free to reach out if you have questions. No questions are too small. Again, that's what we're here for. We are here for you. So you let me know how we can help you. And if you have any other questions in advance of some of these upcoming events or in general, you know where to find us. Okay.
Thank you so
Thank
much,
you.
Adrian.
Thank you, Adrian.
Yes. So I think that wraps up our meeting today. Again, thanks Vanessa, thanks Adrian, Zach. We all kind of helped put this together. So thank you all. And I hope that you all feel a little bit better about going to a career expo. And I hope that you all go and get those internships and get those jobs here in a couple weeks. So thank you all for coming and have a good night.